Well, welcome to our talk studio, and it's a pleasure as always to have our analysts with us, David Makali and Kipchumba Murkomen. So we've seen what some of the other experts have to say. The question I'll put to you tonight, first and foremost, is a fallout unlikely or imminent? Let me start with you, David.
Well, first of all, I don't think that there is going to be a fallout. And when you talk about fallout, I think it's implied that Musalia leaves the party because Raila is the owner of the party. I don't see that prospect, because what will be Musalia leaving to go to? And when I look at all the scenarios, I don't find anything attractive enough that would force him to leave. So all efforts, I think, are going to be made to make sure that Musalia and Raila fight out, and then they remain within the party, because their fortunes lie within the party.
So all part of the democratic process?
Well, acrimonious, but yes.
Okay. Let me come to you, Kipchumba, and also just threading in the legal elements of all this. If someone was to leave a party, what timelines would be required, and what's the process?
First of all, I think that there are factors that will determine, whether or not there will be a fallout. First of all is whether the process is going to be democratic. One of the things that Mudavadi seems to be complaining about seriously is the manner in which he's being treated as though he's being belittled. So quickly, ODM, if they want to survive a fallout, they must first treat Mudavadi as a core partner, and
as a serious
player, a core partner, a co-owner of the party. And but if the players supporting the Prime Minister continue giving the utterances we've seen in public, there is a likelihood that not Mudavadi alone, but his supporters may actually want to push him, even if he didn't want to leave from the party, is to push him. Two is the opportunity. There seems to be, with the ICC process and the volatility that comes to the process, so many people who are outsiders, who are not members of ODM, who are gravitating towards Mudavadi. And because of that, there is a genuine temptation that might this be my golden moment, might this be the opportunity for me to get it. The problem with that is that in the Political Parties Act and the Elections Act, there are particular timelines, one of which you must have been in a party for 6 months. Mudavadi has no control about when will be the elections day. 6 months might lapse. Usually in Kenyan politics for the last 2 or 3 elections, we've seen that coalitions are formed 2 to 3 months before elections. Yet you must have been in a party 6 months down the line. So I find that he will find himself in an awkward position in terms of that. And I think not only him, but many other political parties. So I think based on those issues, then we'll be able to know whether he will remain. But I think, as I've said before, his chances politically might be to remain within and fight within ODM.
Okay. Let me move. Did you want to add something, David?
And I think the whole, this crisis or the disputes within the party arising from just one issue, the methodology or the process by which the presidential candidate should be nominated. And I think the party is awake to this crisis. And I sense that they're going to pull together all the resources, have a meeting, perhaps at the next NEC happening on 23rd, or soon after that, determine when these issues will be put in line completely. If they decide the delegates' conference has to meet and ratify the changes, they'll do that. Once that is removed and the contest is clear, the rules are clear, I think there's going to be a clear battle, and whoever wins, the other will remain with them.
I don't agree with Makali that it's methodology. I think there are underlying issues. The methodology is being used as an excuse.
Okay.
The issues are, succession, relevance politically. Does Mudavadi feel that he is relevant politically, even nationally, or is he just being treated as a passenger in the political process? Because of that, and you will see Khalwale and the other political players from Western are putting so much pressure on him that if you are a coward, if you're not going to take up the mantle and run, so there's a pressure internally, but also there's a pressure from the community that, this is your time to speak out and consolidate Western votes.
Okay. Because there's been so much happening this week, I want to touch on 2 other issues of importance and relevance. A dossier presented in the House this week alleging that there's a conspiracy, a UK conspiracy with respect to the ICC targeting President Mwai Kibaki. Your thoughts on that, and also your thoughts today on the advert in the paper from the Secretariat, the Raila Odinga Secretariat, that states that Uhuru and Ruto should be in jail. Let me start this time with you.
Politically, I think that was a goof. It is a big mistake from the Raila side, especially the Prime Minister himself, if he owns up to that statement, because he's been doing so well by doing two things. One, keeping silent. Two, playing the victim of whatever it's called, propaganda. But he's been angered to be able to respond to a process that perhaps he has no control. That way, it lends credence to the arguments that were being made in Parliament that perhaps he played a role. But had he just, kept quiet, relaxed a bit, and I think there's some things that I thought Raila had already borrowed from Kibaki, one of which was golden silence. Sometimes, a delayed silence might work for you.
Yeah, just chill.
It might work for you.
I hold a totally different view on this matter. I think it's true what Murkomen is saying. Raila had succeeded in keeping quiet for the longest time after the confirmation of charges. But, he's been the subject or the target of a lot of, schemes and attempts to suck him back into the ICC controversy. How long should he wait and suffer fools at schemes that are directed at him? And this was clearly at him and the president, for example. Should he keep quiet and this to pass? Sometimes silence is an admission of liability. It's not always that when you are silent, then you are innocent. And I think the extent to which this had gone, and I think the whole plot was pathetic. Everybody agrees that this is not authentic. It was concocted
but
stuff.
Kibaki
now,
just
did he have to keep quiet?
Kibaki just
Kibaki, he's not. He's actually. By the way, Kibaki is actually caught in the line of. Would I call it in the crossfire? Because the target of all these things is to fix Raila. And he should not pretend that the target has been broadened to include Kibaki. Kibaki is being improvised here to the extent that he needs to act also to advance the scheme.
Okay, David, I can...
Julie, first of all, the first thing I want us to agree, as we discussed last time, is that Raila is the front runner politically. And if you are the front runner, you are the one you are stand to lose more than everyone else. That means you either you choose to react for purpose of posterity, basically to be on record on something, or you react in a manner likely to give you more votes. If you remember something that used to happen to Raila before two elections, it was always that he is antagonistic and that he's not going to accommodate divergent views. He fought that kind of a view that people had. He had succeeded very well. We had even reached a stage of saying that he has now become of age, he has mellowed, he will accommodate everybody, it doesn't matter whether it's Ruto or Uhuru. And then suddenly he's being provoked. Whether the document is authentic or not is not a question of discussion here, but basically that he took that opportunity for him to now remain like a father of the nation came for him. And I think this was an opportune moment to strike. And I thought those who wrote the document may not have consulted with him enough. And if they consulted, I think it was, for me, it was a blunder.
I think that, my view is that the Prime Minister owed his supporters a position on this dossier. It's in the public domain. There are people arguing that it's fake. There are those who want to believe it. And the propagandists who put it out want people to believe it. You can't be quiet in such a circumstance. You owe the public a position. And I think his position was as given by the secretariat, the campaign secretariat. I wouldn't begrudge him that opportunity to respond in a case where you're under attack. Two, and I think the onus now, since the document has been disowned by the British High Commission and by our own national intelligence, is for the person who tabled the document, Charles Kilonzo, to be probed by the police for forging documents and fooling the country. That's how we should progress.
Certainly, we will be watching that story this coming week. We've got to wind up, but just very quickly, gentlemen, when do you see us having elections? Just very quickly, what do you think?
My considered opinion would be that we have it anytime between 15th of January and 20th. The reason is because the Constitution talks about 60 days, within 60 days after the term of Parliament comes to an end. It's important for us to agree now on that exact date so that because it has a trigger effect on many other things. And the sooner we do that, the better.
Thank you for the considered opinion.
I would prefer that, despite the president saying, he'll obey the court order order. I mean, really, the courts are there, but also the court gave him and Raila, the opportunity to fix when the elections will be held. I think he should not milk his term to the extreme end. I mean, he can sacrifice 3 months of that term and bring forth the elections to December, as has been contemplated.
Okay, so you're still hoping for 2012, you're saying probably 2013.
Yeah, because...
All right, then. Another story we'll be keeping our eye on. As always, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us. I'll be back in the news studio in just a few moments with Who Owns Kenya, and of course, sport is on the way. Don't go away. This is Sunday Live.